What do you do when a late-night host crosses the line and a former president says, "I've had enough"? Tonight, we're dissecting one of television's most incendiary moments. Donald Trump storming off the stage of Late Night with Seth Meyers during a live interview. This was not a scripted bit. This was not scripted drama. This was genuine tension reaching its boiling point on national television. Before we get into what exactly was said that caused Trump to rip his microphone out and walk off, be sure you hit that subscribe button and leave a comment below telling me if you believe the host crossed over or if Trump couldn't take the heat. Now, let's get into how it all went down. The atmosphere in Studio 8G at Rockefeller Center was charged that evening. Donald Trump was about to be on Late Night with Seth Meyers, and everyone knew that this was going to be a show to watch. The history between these two gentlemen stretches back years. Meyers infamously skewered Trump at the White House Correspondents' Dinner when he hosted Weekend Update. And many political pundits believe that skewering was part of what spurred Trump's political aspirations. So when Trump accepted appearing on the show, the producers knew that they were holding a powder keg. They just didn't realize it was going to blow up so wildly. Trump emerged to a split reaction from the crowd. Some cheers, some whiskey, precisely what you'd hope for in New York City. He was dressed in his classic dark suit and long red tie, and he had that know-it-all grin he always sports when he's approaching what he knows is going to be a contentious encounter. Meyers stood up from behind his desk, shook Trump's hand, and already the tension hung in the air. The handshake took just a fraction of a second longer than it needed to. Both men holding on just a bit tighter than they needed to, both ensuring the cameras had them looking friendly despite the fact that everyone in that studio recognized that things were about to get nasty. They settled into their chairs and Meyers began with what amounted to a softball. "Welcome on the show. Thanks for visiting. A great deal to discuss." Trump nodded, buttoned his jacket and told the audience that he was glad to be there, that he always enjoyed working late-night television since the American people have a chance to see the real him and not the one the fake news media wants them to see. Already less than 30 seconds into it, he was firing at the media. Meyers smiled, that tight smile that doesn't quite make it to the eyes, and said, "Well, I hope they get to see the real you tonight because I have some real questions." The opening few questions were biting but bearable. Meyers inquired regarding Trump's agenda, his political future, whether he would run again. Trump spun around the questions as he always does, providing lengthy responses that somehow never quite respond to what was actually questioned. He went on about how much people are urging him to run, how they approach him on the street every day, pleading with him to save the country, how the current administration is ruining everything he built. Meyers would attempt to steer back in an effort to pin him down on details. But Trump is a master of dictating the terms of the conversation, and he was not going to let a late-night comedian have his way. Then Meyers changed gears. He mentioned the legal matters, the investigations, the court proceedings. And this is where you could see Trump's tone change. The smile got more pinched. The answers were more curt and pointed. He labeled it a witch hunt. Said it was political persecution. Said that no president in history had been treated more unjustly than himself. Meyers reminded him, referred to actual facts, spoke of testimony from Trump's own appointees. Trump interrupted him. "They're liars and backstabbers. They're resentful because I fired them. They're making things up so they can sell books and get attention. I'm the victim here, Seth. And I believe you understand that, but you refuse to acknowledge it because this wasn't enjoyable anymore. This wasn't entertainment. This was two men who didn't really like one another going face to face. And we all watching could sense how real it was becoming." Meyers moved forward in his chair and remarked, "With all due respect, calling yourself the victim when you're one of the most powerful individuals in the world is," and he paused here for emphasis, "it's rich." Trump's face turned red. "Rich? You want to discuss rich? Tell me what is rich, Seth. What's wealthy is you sitting there in your plush studio raking in millions of dollars to read jokes that other people have written for you. And believe it or not, thinking that qualifies you to lecture me on anything. I've constructed buildings. I've created employment. I've governed a nation. What have you done? Besides make condescending little remarks from behind a desk." The audience gasped. There were some people clapping, and others were booing, and Meyers had to wave for everyone to stop. He took a deep breath, and obviously trying to keep his temper, stated, "This is just the sort of deflection that we've learned to expect from you. I ask you serious questions, and you personally attack me rather than answering the question." Trump replied quickly. "You didn't ask me a question. You made a comment. You stated, I call myself a victim like it's some kind of character flaw. Let me tell you something. When the whole system is against you, when the media lies about you day after day, when they're investigating you for things that every other politician does and gets away with, yeah, you're a victim. That's not diversion. That's reality." Meyers was not backing down. "All right. He said, let's discuss reality. Let's discuss what you've said, what you've done, the people you've hurt with your words and policies. Let's discuss taking responsibility rather than blaming everyone else. Trump pushed forward slightly in his chair. You want to discuss hurting people? How about we discuss how your people have ravaged American cities? How about we discuss crime rates and inflation and parents who can't afford to feed their children? How about discussing real issues instead of whatever pretend outrage you're trying to create tonight? This was careening out of control quickly, and you could see producers backstage getting anxious. Meyers attempted to get back in control. Mr. President, he said with just a trace of sarcasm. I invited you here to have a conversation, not to turn this into a campaign rally. If you can't handle being asked difficult questions without having a meltdown, maybe you're not as tough as you pretend to be. And that was the match to the gasoline. Trump yanked the microphone from his lapel and slammed it onto the desk. Melting down? You think this is a meltdown? I came here out of politeness, Seth. I came here because I thought perhaps just maybe, we could have an honest-to-goodness discussion. But you don't want to discuss. You want a punching bag. You want to rack up points with your liberal crowd by being rude to a former president. Well, guess what? I don't need this. Trump was on his feet now, standing as tall as he could. And Meyers was on his feet too. Standing there facing each other across the desk like two opponents in a ring. The audience didn't know whether to watch or avert their eyes. This was no longer television. This was an actual confrontation occurring in real time with millions of people watching. Meyers held up his hands in a gesture that was half placating, half challenging. Sit down, he said. You agreed to come on the show. You knew what type of show this is. You knew I was going to be asking you actual questions. If you can't deal with that, then yeah, maybe you should exit. But don't like you're storming off in a huff because I'm being unreasonable. You're storming off because you can't justify your record. Trump smiled, but it wasn't a nice smile. It was hard and bitter. My record? You want to discuss my record? I had the best economy in history prior to a pandemic which started from China to close down the world. I appointed 3 Supreme Court justices. I rebuilt the military. I secured the border. I made America energy independent. What has the current administration done other than to reverse everything that I did and make everybody's life worse? But you don't want to discuss that because it doesn't play into the story you want to tell. You want to make me look bad because that is what gets you applause from people who already agree with you anyway. Meyers stepped out from behind his desk, now advancing on Trump. This was totally off script and everyone knew it. The cameras were still rolling, but the producers had no idea what to do. Do they cut to commercial? Do they let this play out? In the moment, they chose to let it continue. And that decision gave us what might be the most raw moment in late-night television history. Meyers looked Trump straight in the eye and said, you know what your problem is? You can't accept that people disagree with you for legitimate reasons. Everyone who criticizes you is fake news or a hater or part of some conspiracy. It never occurs to you that maybe, just maybe, people have genuine concerns about the things you say and do. Trump took a step forward and now they were less than 3 feet apart. The Secret Service agents who had been standing in the wings were tensing up, ready to jump in if this became physical. You want to know what my problem is, Seth? My problem is people like you who have never built anything, never risked anything, never had to make real decisions that affect millions of people, sitting in judgment of those of us who have. It's easy to be a critic. It's easy to make jokes. It's a lot harder to actually do something. And the reason you're so obsessed with tearing me down is because deep down you know that I accomplished more in 4 years than you'll accomplish in your entire life. The audience was losing it now. Half of them were on their feet cheering for Trump. The other half were booing and shouting at him. And Meyers had to yell to be heard over the din. That's your answer to everything, isn't it? Attack people's accomplishments. Question their worth. Make it personal. You can't just discuss ideas. You have to destroy anyone who challenges you. Trump shot back without missing a beat. You started this, Seth. You invited me here to embarrass me. You asked loaded questions designed to make me look bad. You interrupted me. You talked over me. You treated me with contempt from the moment I sat down. And now you want to act like I'm the one being unreasonable. I've dealt with world leaders. I've negotiated billion-dollar deals. I've handled pressure you can't even imagine. And you think you're going to rattle me with your little gotcha questions? Meyers was shaking his head. This is incredible, he said. This is absolutely incredible. You can't even sit through one interview without turning yourself into the victim. And everyone else into the villain. Do you know how many guests sit in that chair and handle tough questions with grace and humor and intelligence? But not you. You have to turn it into a fight because that's all you know how to do. Trump pointed at Meyers with both hands now, his signature gesture. You achieved your position by lying and bullying and tearing people apart. You achieved your position by manipulating people's basest instincts. And the worst part is you don't even realize it. You actually believe you're the hero of this tale. The studio fell dead silent. Even those who had been rooting for Trump looked shocked at how blunt Meyers was being. For an instant, just an instant, Trump said nothing. He simply glared at Meyers with a mask of unreadability. Anger, certainly, but perhaps something more, as well. Hurt, shocked that someone would say that to his face. Trump then began to speak and his tone was softer than it had been, which only served to make it more intense. You know what, Seth? He said, I came here tonight because I think it's about engaging with people you disagree with. I do believe in addressing my case directly to the American people, even when I know that the host is going to be a hostile one. But this is what you just did that crosses a line. You can challenge my policies. You can question my decisions. But when you go after my character, when you call me a liar and a bully on national TV, you're not being a tough interviewer. You're being a propagandist. And I don't engage in propaganda. Meyers prepared to answer, but Trump interrupted him. No, I'm through. I'm not going to stand here and let you besmirch me for ratings. You want to know why the public doesn't believe the media anymore? It's because of scenes like this. Because you can't simply report the news or have an equitable dialogue. You have to put your bias and your hatred into everything. Well, congratulations, Seth. You got your moment. You've got to demean a former president on your show, and I'm sure your producers loved it. But I'm walking away with my dignity, which is more than I can say about you. He turned and began to walk off the set, and Meyers yelled after him. Running away does not make you right. It shows you can't take being challenged. Trump halted and spun around again. I've been challenged by some of the world's toughest. Seth, dictators, business titans, political adversaries who know what they're doing. You're not a challenge, you're a nuisance. And I don't waste my time on nuisances. With that, he strode off the stage, his Secret Service entourage falling in behind. The crowd was totally dazed. Some standing and clapping him out, some booing, everybody shouting at the same time. Meyers stood there for a split second, obviously attempting to get his head around what had just occurred. Meyers went back around his desk, combed his hair with his fingers, and stared straight into the lens of the camera. The crowd was still abuzz, still trying to wrap their heads around what they'd just seen. And you could tell by looking at Meyers's face that he was attempting to think of what to do. He inhaled deeply and remarked, well, that just happened. There was some nervous tittering in the audience, but nobody else was quite ready to act normally yet. Meyers went on, for those of you just tuning in or watching this later online, Donald Trump just stormed out of this show after, and he hesitated trying to find the right words after we had what I think is fair to say was a very heated exchange. But here's the thing, and Meyers was now sounding more serious than he normally does. His comedian persona totally fell away. Here's the thing. I don't regret one question I asked. I don't regret pushing against his responses because that's what journalism is all about, even when it's occurring on a comedy show. We're supposed to ask tough questions and we're supposed to hold people in power accountable. And if someone can't take that, if they have to storm out and claim they're being victimized, well, that says something telling about that person. The producers backstage were scrambling, wondering what to do with the remainder of the show. They had segments planned involving Trump. They had other guests lined up who were scheduled to come out next, and now everything was thrown into disarray. Meanwhile, out in the hallway down from the studio, Trump was being surrounded by his people. His press secretary was on the phone right away, already writing a statement. His advisors were arguing about whether they should go back out there, whether they should demand an apology, whether they should make a big deal out of this or try to move on from it. Trump himself appeared energized instead of angry. Did you hear how silent that audience became? He turned to his people and said, they know I was right. They realize he went too far. This is going to be all over tomorrow and everyone is going to know exactly what I have to put up with. These so-called media folks believe that they can say whatever they like and there's no accountability. Well, I just proved them wrong. You disrespect me, I walk. Plain and simple. One of his advisors attempted to posit that walking away would be bad for him, that it would appear as if he couldn't bear the pressure. Trump shut him up in an instant. Are you kidding me? This shows me as strong. I stood up to him. I didn't just sit there and let him badmouth me. People respect strength. Believe me on this. Meanwhile, back in the studio, Meyers was attempting to press onward with the show, but you could sense his mind was still on the just concluded drama. He introduced his next guest, a comedian who had sat in the wings and observed the entire confrontation on a monitor. The visitor emerged and had no hesitation saying, "So, that was crazy, huh?" The crowd chuckled, appreciative of a break from tension. Meyers smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Yeah," he replied. That was something." The guest attempted to make a joke of it, attempted to lighten the moment, but Meyers brought it back to the meat of what they had been disagreeing about. He seemed almost obligated to defend himself, to explain to the audience why he had pushed so hard. "I know some of you probably think I went too far," Meyers said during a break in the conversation. "I know some of you think I was rude or that I was trying to ambush him, but I gotta be honest with you. I don't think asking a former president to account for his words and actions is going too far. I think that's the bare minimum we should expect from anyone in power. And if that makes me biased or unfair in some people's eyes, I can live with it." The audience applauded, but it was a split applause. You could hear that not everyone agreed, that the room was divided on whether Meyers had been a tough interviewer or had simply been out for blood. Meanwhile, Trump's team had escaped the building and into the waiting cars. Trump was already on the phone, calling into a friendly news network to give his side of the story before anyone else got a chance to shape the narrative. He was describing Meyers as a third-rate comedian who ambushed him, who asked gotcha questions, and then complained when he didn't just sit there and take it. He was casting himself as the reasonable one who tried to have a civil conversation, but was met with hostility and disrespect. And because Trump gets media better than almost anyone, he knew that getting his version out first was key. Within minutes, clips of the confrontation were spreading across social media. People were taking sides immediately, passionately. Team Trump was lauding him for walking out, saying he showed strength and dignity by refusing to be disrespected. Team Meyers was lauding the host for not backing down, for asking the tough questions that Trump couldn't answer. And in the middle were millions of people who weren't sure what to think, who saw valid points on both sides, who wished the conversation could have been more productive, but understood why it broke down the way that it did. Back at the studio, after the show ended and the audience had filed out, Meyers sat in his dressing room with his producers. They were doing a post-mortem on what had happened, trying to determine if they had done it right. One producer thought they should have cut the commercial sooner, should have prevented it from getting so out of hand. Another thought they did exactly the right thing by letting it play out, that it was a moment of real television that people would be talking about for years. Meyers was quiet, just listening. "I believe the confrontation was unavoidable. When he agreed to appear on the show, somebody asked Meyers whether Trump would ever return, whether there would ever be a second conversation. Meyers just burst out laughing, a real laugh this time. "Are you kidding me? No, he's never going to come back. And to be honest, I don't know if I'd want him to." That was draining. But you know what? Perhaps it was significant. Perhaps people had to witness that exchange. Had to witness what occurs when you don't simply stand there and let someone steamroll you with talking points and evasion. Perhaps that's worth more than a nice interview where nothing substantial is ever said the following morning. All the news outlets in America covered the story. The cable news networks were cycling the clips over and over, calling in analysts to dissect each sentence, each movement, each smile. Political pundits were arguing how it would affect Trump's future, if this would damage him or benefit him. Media commentators were arguing if Meyers had been courageous or irresponsible, and average individuals were fighting about it at the office, at home, on the internet, everywhere. The walk-off video was trending #1 globally. It was getting tens of millions of views in hours. Folks were memeing it, making parody vids, writing op-eds about the political discourse in America. Trump himself was enjoying it. He was tweeting about it non-stop, blasting Meyers with supportive comments from his base, attacking Meyers over and over. He referred to him as a lightweight, a hack, a person who was not capable of being able to have a real conversation with a strong leader. He said that the entire episode vindicated his position on media bias, that the establishment is afraid of him and will do whatever it takes to bring him down. And his fans lapped it up, enlivened by watching their man refuse to cave, refuse to play according to what they perceived as fixed rules. Meyers returned to it on his show the following night. He devoted the first 10 minutes of his monologue to the interview, including clips, reacting to criticism. He was apologetic, but also reflective, seeing that the discussion became heated, but defending each and every question he posed. He uttered something that resonated with many. He explained, "We're in an era where things that are simple facts are up for debate, where accountability is optional, where individuals can say anything they want without repercussions, and if my role is to just smile and nod and allow that to happen, then I'm not doing my job." So, sure, it did become awkward. Sure, it became confrontational, but perhaps that is something that we need more of. Maybe we need to stop being so polite and start being more honest. The audience gave him a standing ovation for that. But again, you could hear it wasn't unanimous. The country was divided on this just like it's divided on everything else. And maybe that's the real story here. Not that Trump stormed off a late-night show, but that even something as mundane as an interview can no longer occur without morphing into a fight, without individuals taking sides, without everyone drawing back into their corners, believing the other side is the enemy. Perhaps the true story is that we've lost the capability to disagree without it turning into warfare. So, what do you think? Did Seth Meyers go too far, or was he simply doing his job? Did Trump demonstrate strength in walking away, or did he indicate he can't handle difficult questions? Be sure to subscribe to this channel and leave a comment below with your opinions. Who did you believe won this showdown and why? I would like to get everyone's side on this one because evidently this hit a nerve with a lot of individuals. Subscribe, comment, and I will catch you all in the next video where we analyze more stories that are getting everyone in a buzz.